it's nice to see you. I'm glad you could make it. Welcome to the very first official wrap up of the fall, kind of. I mean, I know that fall started on September 21st. Like, I know that in here. However, I feel like fall started on August 31st. I don't know what it was about this year, but I was deep in the fall vibes as soon as I saw September on my calendar. And my reading kind of reflects that. It does. Okay, it does. I did end up reading 9 books in the month of September, and a lot of these are actually not in videos, so you might not even have known that I read them. Normally I like do a reading vlog and finish that and immediately go into another reading vlog, but the way that my schedule worked out, I didn't film a lot of my reading this month. So a lot of these you actually don't know I have read, so you won't have heard my opinions before, which I kind of like that I'm not like repeating myself. Well, this was a big reread season. We'll get into that. For the September wrap up, I did read 9 books, 5 of which were fantasy, which like, duh. We're getting into fantasy girl fall. Like, I am so deep in my fantasy girl fall era in a way that I cannot explain, as well as 3 romances and 1 mystery thriller YA-esque genre book, 2 of which were rereads, but we'll get into that. There is something comforting about a reread, especially in the fall season. There's no sort of comfort or like comfort read than listening to the audiobook of a book you already know how it's gonna go, but we'll get into that. And now is the point of a wrap up when I would normally open up the Goodreads app and have minutes of me just sitting here, blank footage, waiting for it to load. However, that is not what we were doing today, because I have a new obsession with today's sponsor, which is Fable. I have tried so many other reading apps. I always go to other reading apps when people are trying them, and I never end up sticking to it because it never interacts well with Goodreads, and the idea of transferring everything over manually makes me want to cry. Fable has made it so easy to import your Kindle and Goodreads information straight into the app. It interacts with Goodreads in a way that we have wanted a good reading app to interact with Goodreads, because let's be real, let's be fair. Goodreads usability expired in exactly 2007, and that is where it stayed. And when you're importing all of your information into Fable from Goodreads and Kindle, actually only takes a couple minutes, and it actually transfers everything over, as well as having so many features that I have quite literally never found in another reading app. I think my absolute favorite one is the ability to rate books on a 0.5 star scale. Okay, hear me out. I very rarely give a book an exact star amount. I am a sucker for a 0.5 star, and the fact that I can actually rate a book 0.5 stars versus having to round up or round down and then explain what I rated it actually. Fable also gives you detailed reader stats and even personalized reader horoscope as soon as all of your information from Goodreads has been imported. Under the little stats tab, I can see that I am a romance ranger, which, yeah, I think that sounds about accurate. The way that Fable knows me, the way that Fable knows me. You can see how many books you've finished this year, what genres you're reading mostly in, which I am surprised by how much I have read of literary fiction this year without even realizing I had, as well as your average rating and your most read authors. You can also share all of these graphics and like adorable wrap-up graphics either straight on the Fable app or outside of app. They also have a more of what you like section, which recommends you books based on what you have added to your list and finished. I love that Fable is everything we want in like a normal bookish rating app, as well as the community aspect of being able to share your bookish thoughts and seeing other people's bookish thoughts. Or you can scroll through your Fable homepage like any other social media platform and see what your mutuals and friends are saying about books, or see recommended posts of books that you have read or added to your list to be read. And they even have their very own personalized Scout AI feature that can take the most obscure prompt you can think to give it and give you some of the best book recommendations. So whether you're looking for an app that is just not stuck in 2007 to read, rate, review, and track your stats for reading, or you want the community aspect of it as well, Fable is truly the all-in-one home for book lovers. So if you're interested, I highly recommend the 2 very easy steps: downloading Fable, importing all of your Kindle and Goodreads data, and then using it. Because I have truly been using it like my new everyday social media platform, and I feel quite literally so at home. Thank you, Fable, for sponsoring today's video. And on that note, I'm gonna pull up the Fable app and we're gonna go through my reads from September. I started off September with quite literally my only mystery thriller read of the month. I feel like October will be a mystery thrillery month. However, it is also a book from a world that I am so sad to be leaving. The way that I woke up after finishing this and was like, I get to read more today, and I was like, wait, no, I don't. No, I don't. As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. This is the last book in the Good Girls Guide to Murder trilogy, and the way that it ripped my heart out, okay? The growth between the characters, the plot line, how incredibly messed up the entire story got from the first book to here was so well done. I think when I finished this and I looked back on everything that had happened, I thought that the character progression and like the downfall of a character throughout the 3 books, the mental degradation that Pip goes through in these 3 books, and like watching it happen, especially in like a YA format, I think Holly Jackson worked absolute magic in this. This took so many turns that I was not expecting. I actually had a comment on YouTube recently of someone saying that they met Holly Jackson at a signing, and apparently she always puts in a twist that you can anticipate coming so that you feel like you're kind of winning and then you don't expect the big twist that comes later. And I said when I was reading this, like halfway through, I have a feeling I know who it's gonna be, and if it is this person, I'm gonna be kind of disappointed. But then we got to like this point in the book, and what I guessed happened, and I was like, so then what is all of this? The turn that the tables took in this blew my mind. The entire Good Girls Guide to Murder series, if you have not read it or heard about it, which I know that I feel like a broken record because there's no way you haven't, follows Pip, who in the first book decides to write her senior culminative project on a murder case that took place 5 years ago that she does not believe was solved correctly, and that's a cold case. The second book is a live case, and the third book is kind of about her and just the character growth and everything we go through with these characters. I was so sad to leave this world. I ended up settling on giving this a 4.5 because it felt a lot. There were a couple of times that I was like, this feels kind of long, and also like we've gone like a little bit past it's the realm of possibility. It was what needed to happen for Pip. It was such a good ending to the series. It just felt kind of long. Good Girl Bad Blood was 5 stars. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder was 4.25, 4.5, somewhere in there. But all in all, in my heart, like it is a 5-star series. I love it with quite literally everything in me, and I will think about this series until the day I die. It's so well executed, and she can write a crime plot like no one else. Second, I read Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver, and if you can't tell from the annotations in here, this one surprised me. I went into this with like medium to low expectations, which is shocking for me because Elsie Silver is truly one of my favorite authors. Like looking back, I don't know why I had low expectations. Well, I mean, I know why. A lot of my friends and mutuals who read this before me said that this was not their favorite Elsie Silver book, and I was influenced, to put it lightly. I feel like I hate going into a book expecting I'm going to love it and then not loving it. So when people tell me to lower my expectations, my brain is normally like, lower them so that you can at least kind of like it. No, I'm obsessed with West and Skylar's story. Like this for me is up there with like Reckless and Powerless, which are my absolute favorite Elsie Silver books from the Chestnut Spring series. I didn't really connect that much with Wild Love, but even Ford, whoa, forgot his name. Ford and Rosie from Wild Love in this, I liked them even more. I didn't even notice how connected to this story that I was. Skylar is a pop star, which I feel like was why I was tentative, because music and pop stars and influencers and stuff in books, the thought kind of turns me off. Music normally really turns me off in books. I'm normally like, babe, I can't hear it. However, Elsie Silver had a fix for that because Skylar's songs are literally recorded and on Spotify. So you can listen to them with the lyrics. Honestly, one of the best book decisions I've ever seen made. Like I loved that in a way that I cannot explain. And Skylar's realized that pretty much everyone in her life has kind of used and abused her entire life growing up, and she's never been able to write her own art, never been able to be her own person. She's always been her parents' commodity rather than their daughter. So when she decides to come to Rose Hill to record with Ford Grant, she ends up having an encounter with a bear, which is very Western Canada. Like the tourists in Western Canada, they do be taking pictures of bears, and West tries to get her out of it. And while she is staying at Rose Hill Records and kind of working with Ford on this new record, she goes through this like regrowth journey in companion with West and his 2 kids. And also like the kids in this, kids are hard to do in books, okay? She absolutely devoured on these kids. The way that the kids issues connected to Skylar, the whole roundabout circle of this, like true 5-star read. I love this romance with everything in me. I don't want to change a word, a sentence, a thought. And I think the thing that's so cool about like all of Elsie Silver's books is because they have so many different tropes, but they're so connected. Everyone has different favorites, and I think that's what makes the whole Western Canada world that Elsie Silver's created so magical. Then I was so lucky to receive an advanced copy of The Songbird and the Heart of Stone, and I actually read this on Kindle, and then one day this actual physical copy of it showed up at my door, and I really want to go through and annotate this physical copy because of the way that Carissa Rodbent uses the words in the English language, just immaculate. This is the 3rd book technically in the Crown of Nyaxia series, which starts with The Serpent on the Wings of the Night and then has the novella Six Scorched Roses and then The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, and that is the first duet, and there's going to be 3 duets, all for different vampire houses in the Crown of Nyaxia world. And if you've read the first duet, you know how excited I was to get Misha's story. The world and the way that she describes the world is so for the visual reader person. I don't know how else to explain that. I can still picture so many scenes from The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, like they're burned into my memory, the end of that book. And then so much of this book has now been burned in my memory. I feel like I flew through this because I was so lost in the story. And it's like a pretty dense book. A lot happens. Like I don't have the words. The second that this comes out, if you have read the Crown of Nyaxia series, get this. And if you haven't, you still have time to catch up because the way that she spins her word and makes these worlds and the way that the characters feel relatable even though they're literally vampires is is immaculate. Like I feel like every single story of hers is so different. Like she did Enemies to Lovers and The Serpent and Wings of the Night, and I didn't know if I was gonna like or be able to connect to her doing it a second time in the second book with the same characters, and she did it. And this book is so wildly different than the other ones. Like I said it in the finishing series reading video, that I feel like she just has so many amazing stories in her head, and instead of making them all individual, she's connected all the characters and like put them on the same world. That makes them so much more impactful, for lack of a better word, and every single story is so different. She's just one of the best storytellers that I've ever read. I did it. Okay, hear me out. This is the fourth time that I've read this, something like that. This is the second time this year that I've read this. Okay, my friend Emily, when I met her in London, was listening to the audiobook version of this series for her like second read through, and I saw it on Spotify and I was like, you know what, that's kind of what I want to do. Like at what point is my Magnolia Parks personality an issue? Because I would be walking Chance down the street in the middle of Toronto sobbing. Oh my god, could not hold the tears back. There were also multiple occasions that I was mouthing the word subconsciously, unknowingly, to quotes in this book. Like in this 14-hour audiobook, I was mouthing the words along with yeah, it's a problem. It's totally a problem. If you somehow have not read this, I literally don't know how I can convince you more. Like this is my entire personality. You know how I feel about it. However, the audiobook, it absolutely devoured. It was so good. I was expecting it to be good, but just the emotions, hearing them said to you, cathartic experience. Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. I really wanted to read Throne of the Fallen, and I asked my book club if they thought that I could just go into it, or if like there's something they thought I should know. And a couple of them were like, you don't need to know a lot, you'll be fine going in, but I think you'd like the Kingdom of the Wicked series. And honestly, they were right. They were so right. This was the definition of an enjoyable, fun fantasy read. The world was pretty easy to understand. Characters were likable. It was the exact perfect amount that you want from a fantasy plot, between like world, characters, romance, everything. It was easy to understand. The lore was introduced very well. The world was very easy to understand, but big still. Like it was still like a pretty big fantasy plot. We're following Amelia, whose twin sister has been found dead, and she wants to avenge her twin sister, and she ends up getting tangled up with a prince from hell, and that's how they go about unscrambling everything. I don't know how to explain a fantasy plot to save my life. This world has a lot to do with like the 7 princes of hell, which is like the 7 vices, like envy, wrath, that kind of jazz. And Amelia ends up building a relationship with the Prince of Wrath, but she's always grown up as a witch, thinking that she can't trust them and like doing spells to ward against them coming. There's so much lore in the witch world that some people believe some stories and others don't believe others. But maybe the princes of hell aren't everything that they're made out to be. And Amelia's character growth and journey in this was just pure entertainment. Like very well done. Quicksilver by Callie Hart. Okay, talking to you about it now. In retrospect, look at the annotations in here. This was long as shit. This felt like it took 9.5 years to read. In retrospect, being done in, the way that I would sell my right arm for the second one. Callie Hart, if you are somehow hearing this, I will give you my unborn child to get the second book. However, this portion, I was like, good, cool, amazing. Like this portion, I was in it, but it felt so long, so long. This portion, however, 5 stars. So entertaining. This portion, 6. Blew it out of the water. Could picture everything. I felt like I was lost in a world. Read it until 4 in the morning. Okay? The world, the fantasy plot, the characters, the twist, huge, amazing, immaculate, so well done. Is it too long? In my opinion, 100%. 100% way too long, because our main character was just constantly told by everyone around her, like, you can't know. We can't give you the answer. It just felt repetitive and like we were doing a lot of the same things. I don't even remember her name. Imagine there was a world that I remember loving her name. I want to say Sierra, but like obviously that's wrong. Saris. Okay, I wasn't that far off. Our main character, Saris, lives in this world that has a very oppressive queen, and they cannot get access to water. They all have water rations, but it's not enough. And she lives in the worst zone that is in this world. But she has always kind of had this communication with metals. But when she runs into one of the Queen's Guard and ends up stealing something from him, a lot transpires and she ends up in a Fey realm, rescued by a man named Kingfisher. And I honestly don't want to give you a lot because the plot uncovers very slowly. And I will say, this is kind of the book that you a little bit have to tough it out. You a little bit have to keep it going, you know? There's a middle portion that I seriously consider DNFing it. The end, oh my god, it's worth it in a way I can't explain. It is so worth it. This was my book club's book pick, and if you ever want to read along with us, my book club is always linked down below. And I feel like we all kind of had the same experience, that like it started off really good, we were excited, and then it lulled a lot. But then when the payoff came, came, the payoff came. Like, I have not believed in a fantasy couple like this in ages. I settled on giving it like a 4.25 because it did drag. Okay, it did. There's so many portions of this that were just like immaculate 5-6-star read. It's worth toughing it out. Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This was the second reread of the month, the second comfort read, and comfort it did. Knowing what happens in the second book in this series, there were so many moments in this that just like literally brought tears to my eyes. This is the heist story of your actual dreams. I didn't read Shadow and Bone going into this the first time. I still haven't read it. Like, but I understand the world now where I am now, having actually read all of it. And I will say the beginning portion of it was hard to digest the first time around, trying to like understand everything that was going on in the world, but it's worth toughing it out. I was fine. However, on the first read around, not knowing a ton, I think I gave this like a 4.5. This time, knowing everything right out of the gate, amazing. I understood the world so well. Like, I forgot why I hadn't given it a 5-star until I went back to my review and was like, oh yeah, I didn't understand the world in the beginning. In retrospect, it is a 5-star read. It's so beautifully crafted. The way that Leigh Bardugo does this heist plot and has the 6 point of views. I would like to point out that I was talking about this in a TikTok and I was like, there's something like 6 of them and like they're in some gang, like the Crows, something like that. And someone commented saying, you holding up 6 of Crows, and questioned how many people in the Crow gang there is. How did I never make the connection that there were 6 of them and they were all crows? My mom called me when she saw the comment and was cackling at how stupid I was. I never made the connection. Unrelated. It's in 6 different POVs and they're trying to go on this seemingly impossible heist, but they're all such unique and defined characters and they all have such different backstories and values and traumas. And every single time you have a question about one of the characters' motives, it's answered in the next chapter. And like the heist execution in this, so entertaining, so gripping, and like this is my bar for found family. And I listened to this because the first time I listened to Crooked Kingdom and I didn't physically read it, so I couldn't annotate it. And Crooked Kingdom is like a beautiful 6-star read in my mind. So I want to go back and read Crooked Kingdom, so I thought I could listen to 6 of Crows this time. And like comfort audiobooks have single-handedly kept me out of therapy this month. Just saying. Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark shocked me. Actually, genuinely shocked me. I settled on giving this a 4.25. So good. So good. Actually, genuinely, shockingly, so good. I bought the first book in the Kingmaker series, which is apparently a second generation spin-off from the people in this series. And I was like, you know what? I'll just read it first. So I started filming a 24-hour reading video, which you guys will get soon. These 2 books are in that video. So if you want full thoughts and opinions, you're gonna get that on Sunday. This was so much better than I was expecting it to be. It was so entertaining. I've never read like a mafia romance before. I was expecting this to be dark, like actually genuinely very dark. This wasn't dark, in my opinion, at least. I didn't think it was that dark. It was more just like a regular romance book, but the plot and like the driver was that they happened to be in the mafia. And it's a marriage of convenience between like the 2 big rival mafia families, the Italian mob family and the Irish mob family, that have had beef for quite literally forever, and they want to squash it by marrying their son and daughter together. The way that this man got jealous and groveled, immaculate, so entertaining. 10,000 Stitches by Olivia Atwater. Do the annotations, do they tell you anything? Yeah, okay, settled on giving this a 5-star. I loved this just as much as I loved Half a Soul. It made me feel all the things that Half a Soul made me feel, which if you have not heard me rant and rave about that, I apologize because it's going to happen now. The Regency Fairy Tale series by Olivia Atwater is magic in a cup, but in all the ways that Half a Soul was kind of dark, this was light and fluffy and wholesome and fulfilling, and for that reason I think I liked Half a Soul more, but I love them equally. So to Half a Soul's 6-star read, this is a strong 5-star read. All of these books take place in a Regency era England, and her writing style and her characters are kind of like Bridgerton meets fantasy, but is also kind of funny and witty and bantery and just immaculate. Our main character in this, Effie, is a servant for one of the very wealthy families in the country when she stumbles upon a fairy from the Fey realm that we met in Half a Soul. And in all the ways that the fairies were mean and conniving and tricksters in Half a Soul, he was so kind and so cute. And again, full thoughts will be in the 24-hour reading video because I don't really have the words for the Regency Fairy Tale series. It just feels so well crafted and so well done and just entertaining to its core. And on that note, that was the 9 books that I read in the month of September. After talking about them and looking back, I had a truly immaculate reading month. Like, I like everything that I read this month. I don't think I've rated a single book below 4 stars this entire month, which I am a generous rater. However, I don't think I've ever been this generous in a month. Let me know if you guys have read any of these and what you thought of them, or if you're going to be adding any of them to your TBR. Also, let me know what your #1 TBR book for October is, because like I'm always looking to add books to my impossibly growing TBR. And And a huge thank you to Fable for sponsoring today's video and literally making it possible, because I know for a fact Goodreads would have been glitching on me the entire time, as it has always done in the past. So if you're interested, make sure to download the Fable app and import all of your Goodreads and Kindle data so you can see all of your beautifully aesthetic reading stuff. And I hope to see you in the next one. Love you. Bye.